So today we have a special guest. We have the star of the Netflix series Last Chance U. We got Coach Jason Brown in the building. How's it going, man?
Good, man. I'm glad you had me. Appreciate you having me here.
Man, so how's your morning?
It's cool. Chilling, man. Took a long drive. Every day is something new. So it's going as good as it could be.
That's dope. You were telling me a little bit about you having a routine in the morning. What does that look like for you?
It just depends, man. Depends on what's booked. Speaking engagements, book tour.
Okay.
Just depends. I got all kind of stuff, man. Or whether it's an interview on the phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What about like a ritual? Do you wake up and just like something you do normally?
Deal with my dang dog, man.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, Stogie's a crazy SOB, man. So
Yeah.
I gotta tame him every morning and get him outside, and then he goes and barks at the dang construction workers, and trying to get him back in the house after that is a chore. Got to lure him with food, you know what I mean? And then, so he's a character. But besides that, then I'm doing another master's class.
Okay.
Master's degree, so I'm doing that in the mornings usually.
Yeah.
Get that work done, and that's about it.
Man, all right. Well, let's hop right into it, man. I think I've seen a lot of interviews and, watched a lot of things. But one thing that I feel like nobody's really like pinpointed is you and your upbringing. Like how did you arrive to this place? Let's go all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. Man, I was just a regular Joe, man. Grew up in Compton, California, and, being a product of my environment, I think, I had to learn how to toughen my skin real fast. Either drag or get drugged through the mud, you know what I mean? And so I think being a product of my environment has allowed me to be a chameleon, man, of sorts. And so I think I can walk into I can talk to any walk of life, man. I can go anywhere. And I think real recognizes real. They know that there's a real one in the room, and then they can know that, this he can go anywhere. And so I think my upbringing is allowed me to do the things I've done for inner city folks.
And what do you think, like, as far as like scenarios, like, has there been any scenarios like when you were younger that really broke you into, just seeing your character on the show is really, really powerful. You lead with power. And so I'm like, man, I maybe I need to drive down there, get the...
there's been a lot of little, game-changing moments, so to speak. You know what I mean? Life-altering situations. We all have trials and tribulations, man, and we all face a bump in the road here or there. And we've all been knocked down, and just how many times do you get back up from that? And that's the key. I think you're going to take an L here and there, but like I always say, I don't lose. I either win or I learn. And so that's just the key of it all. And I think learning through the times that you aren't as successful as you want to be, I think has toughened my skin. It's allowed me to pass those things along to a lot of young boys and help them turn them into men. And so that's what I do. And, I've sent a lot of kids to college, a lot in the NFL, and they're all now good community members. You know what I mean? They get it when they leave my place. They don't go to jail. They don't get kicked out of the 4-year school because I am hard, so to speak. I tell them the real life truths of the world. It's going to hit them in the mouth when they leave me, and I think they, the ones that get it, flourish, and they have a great career, whatever it may be. But is it playing, or if it's going to be a coach at the next level, or I've even sent guys to ESPN to work behind the scenes. So I've been able to help guys. Kind of a risk versus reward type deal. Does the reward outweigh the risk? And that's what I've always asked myself. I tell the kids that. I tell coaches that. Are you doing what you want to do, or are you doing what you have to do? And so
I like that.
We all have to do what we have to do at some point, but, are you willing to sacrifice to do what you want to do? And I did that for 13 years as an unpaid coach.
Wow.
And I didn't want to work at JCPenney warehouse, man. I wanted to be a coach, and I wanted to do it eventually to where I can make a living at doing it, so I can help 200 plus kids go to college. And without that, man, I could have made a left at the stop sign, man. Instead, I made a right, and it allowed me to be here to help these young men. If I'd have made that left, I'd probably be dead or in jail. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. What was the moment in time where you were like, I think I want to be a coach?
You know, I was raised by some influential street guys, man, that are really, really well known, and I think being around them as a youngster, they kind of taught me the game, so to speak. And I put it in my book, Hate Me Now, Love Me Later. I put a chapter in there called Playing the Game. I think it is a game, whether it's the academic side, it's the being pulled over, man, by a cop. I tell my young brothers, man, you know, shoot, you got to play the game to get out of that thing nowadays in this society we live in. So, you know, playing the game is a huge part of it. And I think whether you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company trying to land the big client, or if you're a football coach or just an average Joe walking down the street, I think we all have to play the game, quote unquote, the game to get what we want and to get by and help others. So that's kind of what I've done.
Okay. And so as far as just like playing the game and being able to, you have, you know, like you've had a great, successful career as a football player yourself, you know what I mean? And so having the knowledge to give back, how important do you think family is? I mean, that's one thing that I like watching Last Chance U. I was like, man, like I really enjoy this, like from a standpoint of, you know, you really bring in the you know, the crew, you know what I mean? And make them feel like family. Yeah,
well, you know, shoot, what they don't tell in that story, man, 200 guys you see that I bring in every year, 200 guys, last year's team, 2 of them had both parents in the house, you know what I mean? 2 out of 200. So majority inner city kids, that mostly that one parent is the mother, and no knock on moms out there. I love them to death for helping these kids, but they're not dad. They just can't be. You know, biologically speaking, they just can't be. They can't fit that role, and so I end up having to adopt that role and adopt those guys. To be honest, and I have to play the dad role with them. And sometimes you got to tell them the harsh realities of this life that we live. And so a lot of the guys that understand that, they get it, and the ones that don't usually are the ones that don't graduate, that don't make it, that are still in at Walmart and smoking weed and doing all that stuff. So the guys that do get it, though, they take it in the mouth and head on, so to speak, and they flourish, man. And the other ones flounder, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading in this article where you talk about making a boy into a man, and I think from one of the seasons, just watching one individual in particular, Bobby, right, and is pretty cool the kind of development of him, where you know, like he started off just like very much like a kid, and then he has a child, and his mind is, you know, in between two worlds.
Sure.
What is your, you know, like, how do you, when you're bringing in somebody like that, how do you evaluate how to give them the knowledge to go to the next place?
You know, each kid is treated different. Contrary to belief, or the average Joe thinks you can't treat everyone different. That's BS. You have to treat them different, because each one of those kids come from a different background. They have a bit different backstory. You know, you treat the team or the program or the business or what have you the same in totality. The kids, though, or the individuals, are treated different. And we all have different personalities. We all have different egos. We all have different, you know, mantras, whatever you want to say. We're all different. And I think, you know, Tom Brady's treated different than the dang kicker. I mean, it is what it is. It's a results-oriented business that we live in, regardless if you're a coach or a businessman. It's results that you're striving for. So, you know, Bobby had a rough upbringing, a rough story back home, and we had to try to mold him. And what people don't get is I'm not at Alabama where I have him for 5 years to play 4 seasons of football. I get him for 6 to 18 months tops, and so I have to mold these kids at an accelerated rate. So when they do go to the Alabamas, Georgias, Vanderbilts, Tennessees, Arkansas, Washington States, Colorados, they don't get kicked out. They know what, you know, hard work is. They know what's expected of them. my place is harder than it is at those levels because my guys are going to succeed, excel, and understand how to play the game.
Is it hard not to get emotionally connected to each individual? I mean, how do you navigate through that?
It is. It is. As a young coach, I try to save them all, and you'll get gray hairs very quickly. You'll spread yourself too thin. You'll end up having a dang heart attack. So I tell these young coaches all the time, you cannot save them all. So save one. And hopefully, I think we've saved more than our share, but you're never going to save them all. I told a business group yesterday, a team of managers, like 50 managers over a sales team. I said, you're not going to save all your salesmen. Try to get through to one of them and try to make that guy a leader. Leaders are defined by creating more leaders, not followers. And
that's great.
And so, I try to tell them, save one person, man. Try to save one, and we, sometimes we think we can save them all as a young coach, and once you become a head coach, you gotta have to separate that self. You don't want to come in my office unless it's something that obviously. Kaylin Davis's sister dying or brother getting shot. I have to keep that kid in house so he doesn't go home and do something foolish. And then, ultimately we graduated him. He's at Arkansas State, and now his mother can see him play, and he has a shot at least to make it to an NFL team and pave the way. But he lost his sister and brother during our watch, and I've had a lot of those situations. They don't show that on the show, but there's a lot of those things that you have to. For every time I MF a kid, I also pat him on the butt and give him a hamburger. And that's the same with coaches. So it's a relationship-driven business. If the kid don't trust you or if the coach don't trust you and run through a wall for you, then you're kind of peeing up a rope, man. You're not going to really get results. And so it ain't about me at the end of the day. It's about us. And so, that's just the world that we live in, and you're only as good as your assistants. You're only as good as your players, and I think coaching is very overrated. I think it's about relationships, teaching them how to be good community members and contributors to society, and so they don't go to jail and get kicked out. So they understand how to have tough skin, and hopefully they can teach their kids or the people they come across those life lessons.
Nice. And so is there a balance in between like you being able to, of course, meet eye level with some of the kids as well as or the growing adults, but at the same time set that boundary of, hey, don't pass this with me. Like, you need to make sure that the authority, there's some sort of authority happening. How do you balance that?
Yeah, being a player's coach as an assistant, that's what I was forever. I was a player's coach to the utmost degree that you could think of. Players loved me because of who I was and how I was, even though I still got in their butt. I told them the truth. But when you get the head job, it changes a little bit. Yeah, there's a finer line now that you tote. You either come into my office because you're getting in trouble, or you have a life-altering decision to make, and I'm going to help you make it in the right way. And so when you get that head job, it changes a lot of things as far as the separation of player's coach and now father figure, mentor, more or less. And so now my job is to teach young coaches also that we're mentors. We're not their homies. We're not their boys. We're not going to the club with them. We're not chasing females with them. We're not doing all that. And I had a lot of young coaches that struggle with that, and that's why we had a bad nucleus last year.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line that you tote, but at the end of the day, man, it's a result oriented business, and what have you done for me lately? You're only as good as your last play. You're only as good as your last game as you coach, and or your last sell as a businessman, or whatever it may be. So that's the truth of it, and sometimes my truth hurts.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And so you're born in Compton. You grew up in this fast-paced lifestyle, right? Like you're saying that you had a lot of connections to the street and things. And so you get into high school and you're playing football. What was the time like you started to play football, but what got you really engaged in actually wanting to play football?
I don't know, man. My dad played back in the day when he was young. He went to Compton High School. He was like the first black person ever graduated from Compton High School in his class, 1955. He played Compton Centennial High School for the championship, the CIF, which is a southern section in California. And Compton Centennial was all black. They already had turned. And, 11 years later, the Watts riots happened, and Compton turns, the demographic changed overnight, basically. So when I'm born in 76, another 10 years later than that, growing up in the early 80s, mid 80s, it was probably the worst neighborhood in America by far.
Yeah.
And so, shoot, curfews being set at 8 p.m. for years. I've seen cats get shot on my lawn. Lived on a dead end. The other dead end was a cemetery. It was a rough part of Compton, Luders Park in Compton. So, I think it was just one of those, you can't, there's no substitute for experience. And I don't care. There's no degree in the world that can give you the hands-on experience that you're going to need in this real world that we live in. So this piece of paper that ends up costing you about $100,000 on average, which you'll never even make in a year, basically, the 90% odds you won't make that money back, you end up owing forever. But there's guys with no degree that go out there and are millionaires because it's a hands-on business. It's not based on intellect, this world we live. It's based on being good community members, good people, good-hearted people, and that's kind of what I train these guys to be.
That's great. And so you move through Compton, you get into, you played for the Avengers, right?
For a minute, yeah. I was also in Bakersfield Blitz, which was owned by the Avengers when they first started. Mm-hmm. So I was in Chicago for the Chicago Rush, and then everywhere, man. Played over in Amsterdam and Europe. Had a cup of tea with the Chiefs 2 different times. So yeah. So it was a good, football paved the way. I tell these guys every day, man, let football pay for your education. Not the other way around, you know what I mean?
Totally.
So let football pay for your education. Football took me abroad. I mean, it's been great. Met a lot of great people and got to travel the world, and all because of football. So it's been great. And the other day I'm with Eddie George and Ray Lewis. We're hanging out, just us three, and we're talking just about what football did for us. So it was good listening to their point of views too. So it was good.
And what do you feel like football has done for you?
It's allowed me to, it's gave me a platform to save lives, man. That's where I'm from. So, I've only taken programs over that are bad, and I've only helped kids that are broken. You know what I mean? I don't get the so-called white kid that's already got both families, that's making a lot of money as parents. Parents make a lot of money, household income's high. I don't get that. I don't get to school that has great facilities. I don't get to school. I get to school that needs stuff that I have to go build and get it. And, that's what, there's no greater saying, man, in my opinion, than doing something that someone said you cannot do. And that's why I take those type of jobs. And I was told I should never have taken a Long Beach Cabrillo job that plays in the Powerhouse League with Long Beach Poly and all these schools. We played for the league title all 4 years I was there. And went to the playoffs all 4 years. They never had been before I got there. I was told never to take the Compton College job where I went. They were 0-30 when I took that job. We sent more guys in college than anybody in the country.
Wow.
Turned the program around. I was told never to take the Independence job, worst JUCO in the country. I hadn't won in 30 years, never won a bowl game.
Wow.
Didn't have a weight room, didn't have anything. So, hey, that stuff turns me on when they tell me that. And so doing something you said you cannot do, hey, that's what I'm about, and that's why I like being underdog. And junior college is special because you can go recruit your wins and losses, in my opinion. You recruit them. So recruiting is your blood life, and it's a talent-based game we live in. And coaching's overrated. It's the Jimmys and the Joes. It ain't the X's and the O's.
Yeah.
And so, those guys, you're only as good as your players. Coaches lose games, just so you know. Players win them.
What makes a great player for you? Like, what defines a great player? Is there such thing as a great player?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a personnel guy myself. I'm a talent evaluator, character judgmental guy. I'm a great judge of character. I'm a great talent evaluator. Whether the talent is within or it's on the field and athleticism. I mean, I think talent goes in many ways. Like, your talent is this. I mean, everything has a talent. Everyone has a talent. Can you bring it out? Can you get the best talent out of them, though? Because in the end of the day, there's nothing worse in this world than a waste of talent. I think we all have one, but how do I get the best out of it? And that's what I've been known for, is to get the best out of somebody. And we're only as good as our weakest link. So I've got to get everybody to rise to the top dog's talent. And, sometimes you have what's called the it factor. That means you have it, no matter whatever it is, you have it. I've had a lot of those kids, and I've had a lot of kids that are just nutty, gutty winners that show up to work every day with their hard hats and boots on and believed in what I taught them and went out and ran through a wall for me. And that made a team collectively. Together, everyone achieves more, acronym for team, that allowed our teams to be successful. And I think when we win 6 days out of the week, meaning in the community, number one, in the weight room and study hall, in the classroom, number two, and then ultimately on the practice field, the seventh day takes care of itself, which is game day. And we've always won. Last year, we lost 6 days out the week, and that equated to losing day 7, which was game day. And we had a bad nucleus.
And so you mentioned there's 3 aspects that you kind of brought up, the inner parts of talent, right? Like, how do you know, like, by looking at somebody or to know that they have this greatness inside of them, but they haven't unleashed it?
In my business, it's first of all, can you play? That's number one. Let's not BS. Okay. So the eye in the sky don't lie. Every day is an interview. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go make sure that the guy can play. Now I'm going to go talk to coaches. I'm going to go turn over rocks, talk to people that help him with the decision to see about his character. Now, is he coachable? Does he love football? They all say they love football, but then every time I do a meeting, I say, do you love football? Raise your hand. They all do.
Yeah, what makes somebody coachable?
Then I ask them, hey, if you love football, how have you missed 5 classes? You don't love football. My dad died. I was coaching the same night when I was offensive coordinator at East LA College, because I chose to do it. I wasn't begged to do it. I didn't have to be there. I tell these kids the same thing. So when I talk to people, I have a criteria that I go through, and the worst of those, when I recruit a guy and find out their inner worth, it's what are your bad assets first, because that determines if I'm going to even recruit you. And so, like, the worst thing of all is bad body language. If you got bad body language, I'm not going to recruit you. Being a sayer and not a doer, I'm probably not going to recruit you. Bad temperament with coaches and stuff, sucking your teeth, probably not going to recruit you. Just being just not a good human being. I think once we, grow hair on our nuts, so to speak, we know the difference between right and wrong. You know what I mean? And I think, I don't care what people say. I don't think Charlie Manson went out and was just killing folks because he was born that way. I just refuse to believe it. I think you know right and wrong. I think you chose to be that way regardless, and I think that's a weak-minded individual. And I think you're a follower. And, I could have easily been a follower and turned left and went to the dope game, but I turned right. And if I didn't make that right at the stop sign, I probably wouldn't have been able to help 200 and something plus kids out. You know what I mean? So you ask yourself, does the reward outweigh the risk? And that's the sacrifice of this thing. Walk by faith, not by sight. You know what I mean?
Let's go. Okay. Yeah. And so motivation, right? And being able to, do you believe in motivation or dedication, or is it one and the same? What do you feel about that?
I don't think any leader, period. I don't care if you're the president, ultimate CEO of our country, or a CEO of BP Oil, or a head football coach at Alabama, or the head coach of New England Patriots. If you can't motivate, you can't be that guy. Yeah. I think motivation is the single determining factor of a leadership role. And I think if you can't motivate, you're in the wrong business. So motivating is number one. And then number two is you have to ask yourself philosophically, do you want to be feared or do you want to be respected? And so I think you need you need both as a head coach, in my opinion.
Why?
Because you walk on needles, so to speak, as a coach or as players. you're going to show up and do your job. If you don't, and you just I respect the guy, but I'm not going to give him my all because I'm not worried about being cut or fired. I think you have a problem. You can't have too many chiefs and not enough Indians. You're not going to be successful. So you need more Indians than chiefs. You know what I mean? And should be only one chief at any respective front. But I think there is a fine line, and you have to kind of balance both of those worlds.
Yeah. And so what is your strategy when you're assessing a team, right? And so when you look at the team, there's a Phil Jackson approach, this is not basketball, but, the psychology between being able to really penetrate these minds, right? And then, maybe centering the team around one person, or how do you navigate that? Like, what is your...
Coaches, man, we're psychiatrists. We're managers and psychiatrists as a head coach. We're not coaches anymore. The definition of coaching is to get someone where they could not get themselves. Mm-hmm. That's the true definition. It's derived from the stagecoach era, when stagecoach took someone from one point to another point. So when you break it down, you kind of got to weigh all the options and say, okay, this is my team goal. We're not late. We don't miss. We sit in the front row. We don't wear headgear. We pull up our pants. We don't call girls the B word. We don't say the N word. We don't do those things, because every day is an interview. And when coaches walk out on that field to give you a $200,000 scholarship, they know what they're getting. And then there's the treat every single player out there differently, because they all have a different ego. They all have a different personality. And each one of those kids are yearning for something. Rakeem Boyd is probably one of the best running backs in America. Would not talk in front of any class. He was failing all his classes because he just refused to trust the teacher to where he can go in and talk to him or talk in front of him, because he didn't trust him. So if you see him crying on the show, it's because I got it out of him, and finally he ran through a wall because he believed in me that I wasn't going to screw him at the end of the day, and I had his best interest at heart. And that kid was treated totally different than Malik Henry was treated. Or Bobby Bruce, or Emmett Gooden, or Delrick Abrams, or Calvin Jackson. Those guys are all treated differently. But the team had its one rule. And if one of those kids broke that rule, the whole team suffered. And that is the ultimate team sport, is football. It's a collision sport. It's not a contact sport. So you've got to be different, and it's not for everyone. And so when you're building the team, man, it's just like anything else. I mean, you got to find... It's ebb and flow, and you got to find what makes that particular team tick. And within that big clock, so to speak, there's a bunch of hands, and you got to find out, how to get 11 hands going in the same direction at the same time, or 22 actually, both sides of football. So there's so many intricate pieces of this thing. There's a million moving parts that the show doesn't show, and you have to always... we worked 17 to 20-hour days. They don't show any of that. Most of it's because we had to teach kids how to graduate, and that's number one. And that's why we led the country in kids graduating. We led the country in the highest GPA of football playing schools, and we got more kids scholarships than anybody in the country in the history of junior college football. So, and that's what it's about. That's what makes me sleep at night, not wins and losses.
Yeah. That's great, man. I mean, thinking about like failure and thinking about wins and losses as you bring these up, I love how even the understanding of failure is not the understanding that you've lost something, but you've won something, right? You've won the knowledge of what to do next. Mm-hmm. I think there was a quote where you're like, "Hey, how did we lose this?" I forgot what it was, but it was like, "How did we lose this game? And you guys should have beat these guys. I need you guys to think about what you did wrong, mm-hmm. so that way we can move forward." How important is it to actualize your failures?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, you're never gonna. I told them a lot. I use a lot of quotes and a lot of those sayings that a lot of them I just come up with, man, and think of my own. But I told all my players, I said, man, you guys should take the dang rearview mirror out your cars, because if every time you look back, man, you fail to see what's ahead. You know what I
Wow,
mean?
that's powerful.
And so I told them, I said, take the dang rearview mirror out, man. And so we had a little motto on our buses. We didn't have a rearview mirror. We took it out. We kind of flipped it down for the driver. We didn't need it, but we kind of took it out just to like say, hey, man, we're looking ahead. You know what I mean? That was our deal. And if they don't accept the truth, man, and are, I guess the biggest thing to answer your question is I have a saying, man, that correction is not criticism. And I tell them that every day. And I said, when you think correction is criticism, and when I stop yelling and cussing at you is when you need to worry. If I continue to criticize you and correct you, the sooner you realize it's not criticism, the better we're going to be. And I think they realized that for the 2 of the 3 years. And then last year, I think we just had a bunch of, camera whores, so to speak, and they went Hollywood, and we had a bad nucleus. So, but I was telling them, I said, you don't deserve to win a game. You're the most talented team in America, but you still do not deserve to win a game. And that's why we only won 2, because we didn't do right 6 days out the week. They were bad. We had a bad batch, and it only takes one bad apple to ruin the whole batch.
Yeah.
And we had too many.
What do you think is the most exponential growth you've seen in just like one of anybody in particular that you're like, wow, this guy went from 0 to 100 because he wanted it that bad?
We had a lot of those stories, man. They don't even show them. They show the 5. They wanted to follow 5 guys that either had a sad story to them, or somebody that was controversial, or what have you. They wanted to sell tickets. You know what I mean? We had 40 guys that signed Division I off the first year, and they only showcased 5 of those guys. But there was 40 guys that did exactly what you asked of them, and that's why they went on. Delrick Abrams, a starting corner at Colorado, who's a 6'4", long defensive back who will get drafted this year. He had all F's and D's when he first got there. I brought him in and ripped his behind, man, and told him this is what it is, and he took it and ran with it and finished with a 3.3.
Wow.
And now he's at Colorado, which, sent guys to NASA, or sent guys to the moon. It's not an easy school. And he's there, and he's thriving there. And so he got it. Whatever it was, he got it. Dorian Williams, DJ, he's at Utah State. He's up for the Jim Thorpe Award this year. College football's best defensive backs. He came in, and we laugh about the story, but he came in and we were taking roll, and we called his name, Dorian Williams. And he's like, I'm DJ. And I ripped him, and no, you're Dorian. Shut the hell up. And he took it like a champ, and one of the greatest, 2 of those greatest kids I ever coached, human beings right there.
Wow.
And so those guys are thriving now. They're going to make it. They're going to get it.
Yeah.
And, hate me now, love me later, man. That's just the real of it. I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah.
I don't care if you hate me now. Love me at the end when you get a scholarship, or when coaches get jobs, or what have you. So I got 6 guys that won the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Wow. So, going into that, that's a great segment, segue to Hate Me Now, Love Me Later. And so I know for me growing up, it was, my dad used to have me outside all the time, just picking weeds, doing all different types of stuff. A lot of stuff that we don't actually see today. I grew up just, building houses, doing things like I'm 12 years old, 13 years old doing this. And my dad actually used to coin that a lot. It's like, don't worry, son, you'll hate me now, but you'll love me later. And now growing up and being able to be successful in my own right, I definitely love him. Love him even more for building that work ethic. And, I think, I keep on saying the generation, but more so this time, I do feel like the work ethic, and I might be totally wrong, but when I see, younger kids growing up, they don't have the same work ethic. They don't have a work ethic that's really like, okay, I need to get up, I need to do this. And so how do you instill that? Like, what is your philosophy behind, hate me now, love me later?
That's why I am the way I am. You know what I mean? I'm probably the last of the old school guys, man. That's just how it was. There was no question in the coach or the senior, so to speak, person in the room. You know what I mean? There was no question in that. We'd get our butts whipped at home. I think that the internet, the social media, the era that we're now in, has contributed to obesity, to laziness, to we come home, change, go out and play. Come home, do your homework, go out and play, and then come do your homework or what have you. But there was rules and there were no breaking it. You know what I mean? Now they come home, get on social media, which they've been on all day on their smartphone. And, I think it's enabled bad writing in classrooms. I think it's with all the abbreviated terms that they use now I've seen my players, man, they write essays and there's LOL on it, SMH. They write that
LOL.
out. Yeah, man, they write it out. So they write exactly how they text.
Wow.
And that's they don't teach handwriting no more in class at school. I mean, it's just one of those things, man. I think the super wet or whatever, the internet super highway or whatever, when it came out in 95 or 6 or whatever, I think it damaged us in a lot of ways, man. It's probably been good for a lot of ways, monetarily speaking, but I don't know if it's helped the youth out. I don't think it has. I don't know. It's hindered them in a lot of ways, in my opinion. But we've never been this obese as a nation ever. I mean, it is what it is, and I think that's a lot. Contribute a lot of that because people aren't active no more. And I think the less active you are, I think you get complacent and you're going to become lazy by nature.
Yeah.
So
digging deeper into your book, Hate Me and then Love Me. What do you mean by hate me?
It does. I don't care what they think, man, about what I tell them, because at the end of the day, the truth of when I say hate me, the truth is that I'm going to push you to the limit because I've been there, so I know when to pull back. I'm going to get you where you couldn't get yourself. That's the love me part at the end, because you'll see it when you get there. But you're going to hate me through the process because you don't know. Remember, these kids only know what they know and don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. Ask a kid point out Kenya on a map. He don't know, but he's never been taught either. So you got to teach these dudes the harsh realities that they're going to face when they leave your place. And so I teach them those things, and I'm just a little more raw and uncut than most, because I think a lot of these people get caught up kissing these kids' butts because they're such a good player. And a lot of them don't tell them the truth. And then what happens when they leave and go 4-year school, they get kicked out. They go to jail. Because they can get away with whatever. And I think a lot of coaches nowadays allow it. And it's only two things. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it. And that's just how it is. And I just refuse to allow it. And that's why I think the kids that leave my place, they may hate me during the process, but, there's a vision, there's a process, and there's an outcome. You know what I mean? And, what's your vision? I ask them. There's a mission statement to that vision that we come up with. Then there's a process, and that's blood, sweat, and tears. You know what I mean? And then the outcome is this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
I saw that walking in. I was like, man.
Yeah. So it's that and a trophy or what have you. You know what I mean? Or Coach of the Year award that I got, or Players of the Year that played for me, or All Americans, or what have you. So. That's the real reward at the end of the day, and that they graduate with that piece of paper, because that's what they came here to do, and that's what they told me they wanted to do in the house, and that's what I told their parents I would do. I'd graduate your son if you come to play for me. And 101 kids, I kept my promise for that, and we got 101 guys Division I scholarships in 3 years, which is by far a national record.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Thinking about that with the reward, diving even deeper, what is like one thing that you want your students and to leave with? Like what is that? That
I taught them some real life values. You know what I mean? That when they leave me and they go to these places and they hear this BS from these other guys, and they're gonna be like, nah, that ain't real. That ain't how it is. Mm-hmm. And I've been, I got guys that hit me up all the time and ask them and tell me, Coach, that you taught us the real. I mean, we're seeing it. We're seeing that it's commercialized at this level, and there's just not a lot of truth to it. And you taught us the truth, and And I'm gonna tell you, man, if I ran the NCAA, I would make every high school kid play 1 year of junior college.
Why?
I don't care if they graduated with a 4.0 and they were NCAA qualifiers or not. Yeah. People might think I'm dumb, but I bet you'd limit all sexual harassment cases that you see at the 4-year school. I think you'd eliminate 90% of kids getting arrested and doing foolish things their freshman year in college at the big Taj Mahal, so to speak, schools like Clemson and Alabama and Georgia, because you're going to come to football jail in junior college.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to appreciate what you have when you leave. You know, right now they're going to Alabama, and I end up getting them anyway because they get kicked out. And that wouldn't happen. And I think a lot of coaches would have more jobs. I think they'd be more secure in their jobs. I think a lot of things would happen if guys went to go to junior college for 1 year. And I think then junior college coaches would get bigger jobs because there's no harder level than coaching in junior college, period. And you can ask anybody. Those 4-year guys don't want to do that job. They don't want that job. And there's certain guys cut for that cloth, and I think I'm one of them. I'm as JUCO gets, and because the reward outweighs the risk, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's great. And so what motivates you? What wakes you up every morning?
Like it's not an alarm clock, brother.
Yeah.
Never had one in my life. If an alarm clock's the only reason you wake up, get out the profession. So I tell kids that every day, tell coaches that every day. If an alarm clock is the only reason you wake up, you got problems. You need to go find something else to do. I've never used an alarm clock to wake up in my entire life. As a coach, player, kid, going to school, I go to sleep thinking about how to get better tomorrow.
Wow.
That wakes me up.
Let's go.
That I go to sleep figuring out how to beat this guy or how to make my office better or how to get a weight room. How am I going to? So sleeping, I'll sleep when I die, man. You know what I mean? I think 8 hours of sleep is too much as it is. I mean, I read an Arnold Schwarzenegger book, and he talked about how many hours you lose in your lifetime by sleeping 8 hours. And so it's pretty deep if you think about it. So I don't know if I've slept 8 hours in 30, 40 years, man.
How many hours did you get tonight? Last night?
Probably 3.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's all you need, man.
Yeah.
Shoot. 3 years and if you can't self-motivate yourself, man, you'll never motivate another cat.
So what is that core? What is that thing that you're just waking up and you're like, all right.
Yeah, what's next? Let's go turn over rocks.
Yeah.
Let's go turn over a rock and find out the next what's the next path that we need to travel. You know what I mean? What's our next route? What's our next destination? You know, it might not be football for me right now. I don't have a burning desire to coach it right now. You know, I'm always going to miss football and what it's done for me, but I can do other things, man. I can clinic coaches. I can mentor kids. I can speak to kids in larger groups, I think, now. Use the platform that I have to you know, exploit my knowledge, I guess, and try to get it over to somebody. I tell them, right, you know, all the time, I steer you strong, I'll never steer you wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can do that by greater numbers. I think I might be able to reach more than I would be as a coach, just coaching 100 guys.
Yeah. So. Yeah. You just mentioned right now, which was the next place that we were going. Like, what is your dream now moving forward? You know, as far as moving forward with who you are.
I don't know. I don't know that right now at this point. Whatever date it is, I don't know. You know, it's I don't have a burning desire right now to coach. I don't have an inclination on what I want to do right now. I know I want to still mentor, help guys out, whether it's coaches or kids. I don't know what that'll be, but you know. What the future holds, I mean, I think, you know, you got to put it in the man above's hands, man. I don't know. I don't know right now. I don't know what to do. He's, you know, I've always been led in the right direction at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it usually it works itself out, and that's just how I've always seen how at least my life's worked out. And I think good things happen to good folks, man. You know what I mean? And you know, I think if you do right by people and have good intentions for folks, I think that at the end of the day, regardless of the trials and tribulations you're going to face, man, because you're going to face them, I think it works out at the end, whether, you know, you get financially secure when you're 60 or when you're 20. I mean, I think it's all meant for a reason, and sometimes you got to grind a little harder than the next guy. and I've never had anything handed to me in my life. You know what I mean? I had to live in a car for 18 months growing up. I mean, it is what it is, but that's the path that was dug out for me. So I had to accept it and move on and take it on head on, or I could have easily scoured and scurried away. You know what I mean? But I chose to hit it in the mouth and you know, go after what you want, and that's created I was half street, half hustler, and that allowed me to help a lot of these youngsters.
Totally. One thing I really like about you and your character, and even seeing you on like the show, but even interviewing you right now, it's more so like you don't negotiate with fear. You know what I mean? You don't negotiate with the thoughts, right? Like different thoughts that might be running through, like where you're thinking like, your mind is very important in training your mind. And so one thing that I learned the other day is in Krav Maga. Do you know what that is? It's a fighting style that a lot of Israelis use or whatnot, but it's actually every move is to kill, right? And one of the understandings in that combat is that if you stand still, it's just as bad as moving back. You have to always stay forward, moving forward. And so, seeing that you have a book out, seeing that you're, doing all these podcasts and doing different shows and stuff, but being open to the opportunity, right? And you're talking about, having a bigger platform and what football has allowed for you or whatever, and being able to see something in a new light. You've mastered something. Now it's time to, whatever that takes you, but you're open to that. Right.
Yeah, man. Shoot for the stars, land on the moon. You know what I mean? You can't win the lotto without buying a ticket. I mean, that's just the truth. A lot of people don't realize how simple that sounds, and like, oh damn, that's true though. I never win the lotto, but you don't play it. You're never gonna get to the moon if you don't shoot for the stars. You know what I mean? You shoot for the moon, you're gonna land up in the dang Pacific Ocean or whatever. So you got to shoot for the stars, man. And I think if you stop pushing forward and grinding, I mean, shoot, man, this big fish eat little fish, man. And this is a dog eat dog world, you know what I mean? And you're either gonna get eaten or you're gonna eat. And it's my mentality. That's how I grew up. When you got the lead in the team, put your foot in their neck and choke them out, and that's just the truth of it. You can be friends afterwards, man, but right now it's war. It was funny listening to Eddie and Ray Lewis talk in person. They actually met, had the same agent. Dwayne Martin brought him out to L.A. years ago, and they were about to fight when they first met. You ain't gonna tackle me. I'm gonna run you over. I'm gonna hit you in the mouth, and it almost became a fight. Now they're like best friends. You know what I mean? And so that's just how it is. And I think those life lessons, those type of situations in life that we have. That's why football is such a great game, man. That's why it's the greatest sport in the world. And, it's a true team game. There's 1,000 different scenarios that can happen with 11 people. I tell people all the time, man, the math of basketball, there's 5 people. There's a 2-2-1 defense. There's a 3-2 zone, and there's man. There's motion offense and pick and roll. Football's still being innovated. It's still being, created to this day. There's still new things that you can do because there's 11 bodies that you can create so many different things with. And then you got to multiply that by everything that goes on off the field that goes into making a winning recipe for success. And it's almost, you can't even fathom it. I mean, it's just so many different moving parts that go on with these kids, and that goes for the mental aspect and what they go through at home and how they were brought up and how they were raised, and that has to be put out there first before he'll ever score a touchdown for you. So, and that just goes back to relationships and being a psychiatrist, man, and figuring out these kids that what makes them tick. And a degree didn't allow that to happen for me. A degree would never have allowed me to save 222 guys' lives. Hands-on experience allowed that. And so that concrete jungle allowed that, you know what I mean? And that's just the truth of it. A lot of people don't understand that and don't want to face the reality.
Okay, nice. Well, this brings me to my favorite part of the hype hour, which is the hype moment. Right, so we're gonna get a little hype, and so pretty much this is where one you just talk about your what's coming up next for you. So you got a book out, you got a few other things. What's going on with that? Tell us a little bit of what you have on the schedule.
Man, I'm gonna do a book signing tour, Boston, New York, Connecticut, I think Florida. Just traveling around right now, signing books, doing a tour at Barnes and Nobles, a couple of different places, some high schools, I think, colleges maybe, and then speaking engagements. I'm signed up with a few different companies, booking agencies that are getting me some speaking gigs that are a little bigger. I think I'm hiring a manager, a new manager. He represents a lot of Lakers and a lot of NBA guys, and he's actually turning over into the football world, but he's actually more of a manager and does a lot of those things. So, it's exciting times, I guess, coming ahead. And, I won't even know. The book is the #1 bestseller 4 weeks in a row.
I've seen that. It's amazing.
But I don't know what the sales are. I won't know until the end of this month.
Yeah.
For at least the first part of this deal.
Forget about the sales. You got the
no doubt.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to get rich off of it. It's just it's a good platform to market yourself. You know what I mean? And in my wildest dreams, I didn't know it'd be this successful. So it's been a blessing to have that going, and we'll see what happens, man, and put all those things together, and my acronym for win is what's important now, and that's what we do. We win every day, and win one day at a time, man. And you win one day at a time. I mean, I think the rest takes care of itself.